Welcome back to Game of Pros. We're here to give you some insight into week one matchups for both fantasy and this week's betting lines. Week one is a tough one. Nearly all the matchups seem really close, and for almost all these teams, changes have been made either through the draft or free agency, and there are even some new coaches. But we've done a lot of digging in for you, Mike and I, so make sure to like and subscribe and check out our weekly matchup videos. First game of the year, it's an exciting one. Dallas goes to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay raises their banner. The whole world will be watching that game. Big pressure, which I don't think the Cowboys do very well with, as well as Dak coming back from a serious injury and having missed a couple weeks of valuable time in camp. There's a reason the money line is tempting for Cowboys fans. But fans, if you think they can beat the best team in the league last year and potentially the best team again this year, go for it. The spread, though, makes more sense for me at 7.5-point underdogs. I'll take the Cowboys there because I don't see this being a blowout. If I had to bet, I'd also take the over since both teams have very explosive offenses. Fantasy-wise, no surprises for Dallas. If you have any of these guys, you're starting them. Yes, even against the strong defense of the Bucs, they were sort of middle of the pack against running backs and receivers, but the toughest on quarterbacks. But you're not benching Dak unless you have some awesome backup quarterback with a sick matchup, and there aren't too many of those in week one. For Tampa, pretty easy starts. I would, however, hesitate to start any running back or tight ends. Too many names there and too early to know who's getting what workload. Mike, do you give Dallas a chance at all with that plus 290 money line?
I mean, for the game, I don't give them a much of a chance. I think they're going to get stomped. But first game back from the offseason, Tom Brady only played in that last preseason game. I think he played like one series. If there's a chance that the Dallas is going to beat the Bucs, I think that this is probably the week to do it. 290 is pretty tempting. I might throw $10 on that.
So I like that. Seahawks, Colts, one of the so many tight matchups in week one. Over under 49.5 will be much easier to bet on if we knew whether Wentz was going to play or not. So keep an eye on that. If he does go over, spread at 1.5, with the Seahawks slightly favored as the road team. I think like all their games, it'll come down to the wire, but they'll squeeze by. Give me them for both the spread and the money line. Your usual starters for Seattle, I am staying away from Gerald Everett, at least for week one. He was inconsistent in LA, and Russ isn't known for having a reliable target share toward a tight end not named Jimmy Graham. Start all your Colts, including Hines. I think if you need a flex player, he's really just a touchdown away from having a boom week. And Seattle was fifth worst in passing receptions allowed to opposing running backs. Paris Campbell is actually my sleeper of the week, someone I'm high on really all year. That's if Wentz plays, though. Colts D are strong at home. Give them the nod as well.
Yeah, not too much to add on the betting lines, but Seahawks were historically bad against the run last year. Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack, definitely start all of them. If the Colts happen to pick up another running back between now and that game against the Seahawks, I'd probably start them too.
Jags, Texans. I absolutely love the spread here. That's why it's highlighted. For Jags at -3. Favored. I think both teams have new schemes, new players, but Jags have a little bit more explosiveness. Texans are a little bit more of a dumpster fire right now. The game could get ugly, so I'm not crazy about the over-under either way, but 45.5, tempting to take the under there. I don't see this being a shootout in any way. The only receiver I'm starting for the Jags is Laviska Shenault, especially in PPR. Marvin Jones, a little bit tempting in standard because of his touchdown efficiency. Shark is a sit for me, taking a wait-and-see approach with that offense as he seems to be the third option there. Lawrence is a start if you're in a 12 or 14-man league. It's a good option for really a great debut for the rookie. Could be a cheap option in DFS. Only player you can start for Houston is Brandon Cooks, I think. Kiki QT was waived today, means more targets for Brandon Cooks. He should see a boatload of targets all year. Because then you have like Chris Conley, Anthony Miller. Not really sure what to expect from them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's going to be tough to bet on the Texans, especially early on. We just really have no idea what their team looks like. It's a completely new roster. Brandon Cooks is going to have to get some volume there. But aside from that, there's really no one else that you can rely on.
Another great matchup. Eagles at Falcons. Home team is 3.5-point favorites. I'll take the Eagles in that spread. I think they could be upset of the week, or at worst, maybe lose by a field goal. I think it's a competitive game, but more offense than defense. Give me the over there as well. Fantasy picks, I'm sitting Miles Sanders. Atlanta in recent years is decent against running backs, stingy rushing defense, not great against pass catching running backs, but I think you have to wait and see how they sprinkle in Boston Scott and Gainwell. If Miles Sanders is your running back too, I think he's startable. But if he's your third running back or flex, there's other options. And one of those flex options, Devonta Smith. Forget all that offseason mumbo jumbo about him being too skinny or whatever. Smith is as special a receiver as I think we've ever seen already. No reason why he can't continue to torch defenses at this next level. I think he and Hurts will actually have a great connection all year. For Atlanta, Kyle Pitts, Mike Davis, obvious starts. They should see plenty of volume at their positions. Start Matt Ryan. His splits show he's best early in the season and much better at home than away.
Yeah, I agree. This is a tough one to call. This is definitely one to keep an eye on, though, so far as the rest of the season. Kind of solving the puzzle between who it's going to be at tight end between Goddard and Ertz. I think if Ertz is going to make another play to be that top tight end, it's going to start here.
Point flip of the week for me. Chargers at the football team. Washington is 1-point underdog. I've heard a lot of folks say Washington is an easy upset pick. I'm not so sure about that. Both teams are so similar in that they both should be much improved. Washington more offensively and the Chargers more on defense. I'll take a couple turnovers on both sides and some kicking troubles, meaning a low scoring game. Give me the under at 44.5 and Chargers money line. It's so close, but I'll go with the team with the better quarterback. And let's be real, Washington fans, the team is atrocious at home. But of course, for this one, I hope I'm wrong. This is also a rare sit for Herbert. For me, I know I just said I'm going Chargers money line because of their quarterback. Obviously, Herbert is a top 10 quarterback overall. But just for the heck of it, I am putting him in the sit department. Washington defense is healthy, it's deep, and it's as scary as anyone else with a tough schedule from start to finish for Washington. This one already has kind of a must-win feel to it. They'll be coming to make his life miserable all day. Sitting Mike Williams, he's too hit or miss for me to start against this defense too. So for Washington, obvious starters are Scary Terry, Logan Thomas, Gibson, and their defense. I don't see also how anyone could start Curtis Samuel, seeing as how we have not seen him yet. So Mike is actually out in San Diego. I'm here in DC. We're going to be doing a whole video about this very matchup. But Mike, right off the top, what are your thoughts about this matchup so far?
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this one. Like you said, in San Diego right now. I've been a Washington fan my whole life. For your picks so far, no qualms. I can't imagine that anybody would start Curtis Samuel. He's been on PUP list this entire offseason. He hasn't practiced once. And I think that's probably what's going to give Chargers the edge. I think that typically a West Coast team coming across the country like this for a 1 o'clock game, you're going to give the heavy edge to the home team. But it's week 1. There's no Curtis Samuel. Fitzpatrick hasn't looked great in preseason. He hasn't thrown a single touchdown yet. The defense, special teams, looks like it'll be good for Washington. But Torrey McTyer just had a concussion. And I don't know, William Jackson III hasn't looked great so far. On the Chargers side, the offensive line has looked great. Their defense definitely needs some work, but so does Washington's offense. So it's kind of a coin flip for me, which means that I'm putting all 100 chips on Washington.
I like that. All right, Steelers at Bills. Highlighting the Steelers as a 6.5-point underdog because I think they've got a pretty good shot to even win this game. Yes, Pittsburgh crumbled down the stretch a year ago. They were like 10-0 and seemed unstoppable in the first half of the year. I think the spread is hyping the Bills up a little bit. The plus 240 is also tempting for the Steelers money line, I think. Give me the over on the points. Both teams can score a ton of points. This one could be the shootout of the week. Also, start all your usual Steelers, not including Juju Smith-Schuster. I am so low on him this season. My only other surprise, I guess, would be to sit Steelers defense. Yes, they're projected to be really great, but personally, they're overrated, in my opinion. Outside of TJ Watt, I think that defense has some holes. For the Bills, Allen and Diggs should ball out. I always like Beasley as a flex play. Just make sure he's not on COVID list or anything like that, and he should be a go. Have to wait and see type of approach with Emmanuel Sanders and Gabriel Davis. I think there are some better sure bets out there. Bills running backs are too frustrating to predict, but if you absolutely have to, go Singletary in PPR.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I like the Steelers at 6.5. I think it's going to be a close game, even going to Buffalo. Only thing I would add is I would only start Beasley in PPR leagues. In standard, I don't think he has much value.
All right, 49ers at Lions. I'm taking San Francisco spread. They are 7.5-point favorites. Yes, that's a lot, but I think they blow out Detroit out of the water. Their defense was 9th against QBs a year ago, and guess what? Detroit's new shiny toy and Jared Goff hasn't fared well against San Fran in his career, going 3-5 and throwing for less than 200 yards per game. So money line is obvious for me with San Francisco. 45.5 seems like an easy over, just because San Francisco can put up a big number. But what worries me is that they could also get close to shutting out Detroit. So I'll hesitantly take the over. Easy fantasy decisions for me with the 49ers. Start them all. Yes, even Deebo Samuel, Trey Sermon, definitely Mostert. If you're in a deep league and lack flex depth, these are all solid options. 49ers defense is probably number one this week as well. For Detroit, I'll probably be repeating this a lot. The only guy start worthy is TJ Hawkinson. If you've heard some of our other videos, you'll know I'm not too fond of DeAndre Swift. Plus, if you haven't seen, head coach said Swift may not even be available for week one, or even if he is, he may not get a lot of volume or a lot of work. Decent week, I guess, for backup, handcuff, whatever you want to call it, Jamal Williams. But I just don't see the Lions getting a ton of points or a ton of yards. Limited upside with him as well. And really nobody knows who the go-to receiver is on this team. Could it be rookie St. Brown? Tyrell Williams, I hear, could be their kind of number one receiver. I think Hawkinson, for that reason, is the only safe bet. If you drafted him, you're starting him every week, barring injury.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This one is, I think, one of the easier matchups of the season to call. Hawkinson's going to be drowning in targets all year. They just let go of Rashad Perriman. Jets, great. I like that they're trying out the rookies. It's probably a good idea to keep an eye on Amon-Ra St. Brown and his chemistry with Jared Goff just for the remainder of the fantasy season. But this game is long gone.
You're meaning to tell me you don't believe in Quentin Cephas?
All right, so Vikings at Bengals. Neither one of these teams has a very stout defense. Over-under is at 48. I think there's a good chance they go over that, although Joe Burrow and recent drops Jamar Chase might hinder that a little bit. Vikings at -4. Feel pretty confident about that. I have 80 chips on that. Over, I have 20 chips. Fantasy-wise, you're going to have your no-brainers. That's Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Tyler Conklin, and Adam Thielen. Keep in mind, Vikings just signed Chris Herndon from the Jets. That may stymie your Tyler Conklin bet a bit. Kirk Cousins, I would sit. Bengals, although they did allow tons of points last year, weren't too terrible against quarterbacks. So far as Bengals fantasy options, we have Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. As I mentioned before, Joe Burrow coming off of that injury. I would stay away from him. Defense, special teams, I don't trust at all. Vikings can put up points. And Jamar Chase looked terrible in preseason.
Yeah, I'm with you on the over, just because both defenses were pretty bad last year. I think the only time you can consider Kirk is probably in DFS, might be a cheap option that could boom for you. And I have to disagree with Chase. Just personally, I'm high on him, regardless of all the drops in preseason.
Next up, we got New York Jets at Carolina Panthers, over under at 44.5. I'm going to go hard on the under here, 60 chips on that out of my 100. I don't see either of these teams being particularly in sync to start the season. Jets are underdogs by 4.5 at -110. I'm going to put 40 chips on that. I think it's going to be actually a pretty close game. We don't know what to expect out of Zach Wilson yet. Although the Panthers defense was pretty tough on quarterbacks last year. So far as fantasy, we've got Corey Davis and Tevin Coleman as starts for the Jets, Jamison Crowder, Zach Wilson, and Michael Carter as sits. Seems like Michael Carter is going to be either the third or fourth running back, according to the Jets depth chart. So far as Panthers fantasy options, obvious ones, Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Dan Arnold, I think will have a decent day against the Jets. Jets allowed the most points in fantasy last year to opposing tight ends, although I don't have a ton of faith in Sam Arnold quite yet. He's going to have to earn that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Only thing I disagree with is I think I'd be willing to put quite a bit on the Panthers covering. They had the end of the year with really strong defensive numbers, and just with the fact that Zach Wilson is going to be debuting in his first game, I think they'll win by more than 4.5 points.
Next up, we've got Cardinals at Titans. Over under 51.5. I don't really believe too much in the defense of either one of those teams right now. Just to start off the season, I'm going to go over for 40 chips out of my 100. For the point spread, we have Cardinals at +3. I'm going to put 60 chips on that. AJ Brown is coming off of injury. Ryan Tannehill just landed on the COVID list. That Titans D was terrible last year, especially the secondary, and they didn't get much better. So far as fantasy goes, easy starts. We've got Kyler Murray, Chase Edmonds, DeAndre Hopkins, Rondell Moore. I'm going to sit James Conner because I think he's going to play a backseat role to Chase Edmonds to start the season. Starting against the Cardinals, I think Ryan Tannehill should be over his COVID stint by then. Stick with him. Derrick Henry is a no-brainer. Julio Jones, I think, might be out trying to impress his new team. And A.J. Brown is a must-start no matter what you do. He's coming off of an injury, so I would temper expectations. But if you have A.J. Brown, you're not sitting him. Major sit here for Titans D. I think Kyler Murray and Chase Edmonds are going to run all over that defense.
This is another really hard matchup. Only thing I'll say here is I don't think Julio Jones is a start or a sit. I think he just needs to be cut from all fantasy teams for the end of time. I'm so sick of him, man. He never practices. He's questionable for like his whole career. It's too stressful. Let someone else deal with that crying in the fetal position thing on Sundays.
Next up, we've got Browns Chiefs. Over under is sitting at 52.5. Have them at the over for 20 chips. Browns are +6. That's -110 on the point spread and +215 on the money line. I'm going to go Chiefs all the way on this one. It's -6. It's hard to bet against the Chiefs, whether it's the money line or that point spread. I have them winning by a touchdown or 2. Fantasy-wise, we have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Austin Hooper starting. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt should get their normal workload. In PPR formats, it should be good for 15 points plus each. Kansas City D was actually pretty good against opposing wide receivers last year. I'd argue for sitting Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. They weren't too stout against opposing tight ends. I think Austin Hooper is a good start here. And then, of course, sitting the Browns D. Any starters you have for Kansas City, I would say start them. Not too many sits here.
Yeah, I think with the Chiefs, I think a lot of people will probably enter Chiefs like money line and spread on some parlays. It'll be kind of like one or two of their easier picks. Only thing I'll say about the fantasy wise, I'm a little scared about Austin Hooper just because I don't know how many targets are going to be out there for what seems to be maybe like the fourth option there, and then you still have Njoku there, and then I believe Harrison Bryant. Got some kind of red zone play last year. So just a little hesitancy with me with Austin Hooper.
Next up, we've got Dolphins at Patriots. Over under is sitting at 45, which is pretty low. I think I'm still taking the under though. 70 chips on that. Dolphins +3, Patriots -3. That's really just home field advantage. You and I have talked about it. Patriots never lose at home. I'm going to throw 30 chips on that out of my 100. Fantasy-wise, if you got Myles Gaskin, you're starting him. I don't feel comfortable really starting anyone else in that Dolphins offense. This Patriots defense looks pretty stout coming up this year. That's why I have you starting them in this game and pretty much sitting all others.
Have to agree with you big time on taking the under. I see a lot of field goals in this game. About as tough of a matchup for Tua to start in week 1. the Patriots defense up in Foxborough. And I'm very high on the Patriots defense this year, getting a bunch of guys in the draft and, a bunch of guys that didn't play last year.
That's right, starting some kickers. Next up, we've got Broncos at Giants. Over-under on this one's 42.5. I'm going under. I am a big fan of the Broncos defense, and I'm not a huge believer in the Giants offense. I'm going 40 chips on the under here. I don't think it's going to be a terribly high-scoring game. I'm also going to put 60 chips on the Broncos to cover 1.5. So far as fantasy, I think Melvin Gordon's going to be the start over Javonte Williams. Not quite as sexy, but I think Melvin Gordon's going to have that job to start the year. We'll see how things kind of play out for the rest of the year. Cortland Sutton's coming back from injury, but I do believe in him. Jerry Jeudy is a must start in every league if you've got him. And once again, I believe in that Denver defense special teams. Teddy Bridgewater is kind of new to the job here. I don't quite trust him yet. Noah Fant will probably get hurt on the first series, so I'm skipping him. So far as the Giants fantasy, Daniel Jones, don't trust. Kenny Galladay is still dealing with an injury. And the defense and special teams, I think, is still kind of coming together. Didn't like what I saw coming out of camp. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is a no-brainer. And Sterling Shepard, I think, is just going to soak up targets the way that he always does. I see him probably getting 8 to 10 targets in this one. And if you're in a PPR format, that's good for Flex.
That under is so low, 42.5. I think I'd take the over, actually. But I do like your Sterling Shepard over Kenny Galladay. And then I worry about Noah Fant kind of being most fantasy owners' starting tight end. It'd be tough to sit them. So I think I'd lock him in as a start myself.
Yeah, I'd probably try to avoid him in DFS if you can. Next up, we've got Packers at Saints. Going the under on this one at 50.5. It sounds like this game will not be played at the Superdome. Thoughts and prayers go out to everyone suffering from the effects of Hurricane Ida. Sounds like they'll be looking for a new facility though. That will not help the over/under on this one. I'm going to go under 50 of those chips, and then I have the Packers covering -3 with the other 50 chips. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Robert Tonyan, Devontae Adams. If you've got those guys, it's real tough to bench them. Saints D was pretty nasty last year. One weak spot that they did have was against tight ends, and Robert Tonyan, especially in standard formats, I think will be worth it with a touchdown. I'm going to go ahead and sit A.J. Dillon and the defense special teams for obvious reasons. On the Saints side of fantasy things, Alvin Kamara is a no-brainer to start. Marquez Callaway seems like he will be the guy while Michael Thomas is gone. Adam Chapman is out. Traquan Smith hasn't quite done it, so I have us sitting him. Jameis Winston could do well. I'm a little hesitant. Just first game on the job. Hopefully he doesn't have another 3 interception performance. And then most weeks I would say to start the Saints D, but against the Packers I just can't get myself to do it.
Yeah, I think it's really sad. For the Saints players, I think as time goes on, there may be some distractions, with kind of dealing with the negative effects of that storm. So I think selfishly, the sooner you bet on the Packers, probably the better. Definitely like the spread for them.
Yeah, really is sad. Next up, we've got Bears at Rams. Over/under right now is sitting at 45. We've got Rams at -7 and -335 on the money line. To me, this is a no-brainer. I think the over/under is a little bit low to try and go under. I like both of these defenses, but I think that the Rams are an easy call on this one. Just go ahead and slide 100 trips over to the -335. Fantasy-wise, you have Allen Robinson. If you've got Allen Robinson, then you're not sitting him. If you can get away with it, I would say bench David Montgomery, the defense special teams, although I do like them. Not really sure what to expect out of this Rams offense. And then Andy Dalton. It's only a matter of time until Justin Fields takes over. In the meantime, I'm going to stay away from Dalton. On the Rams side of things, You've got a pretty stout Chicago defense on the other side of the ball. One spot where they were a little weak was at tight end last year. So I'm going to go ahead and slot Tyler Higbee in there. And then if you've got Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and the Rams D, you're probably going to be starting them. I'm going to hold off on starting any of their running backs right now, just until we see how the field plays out. So I would say go ahead and sit Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel. And same thing with Matt Stafford. Bears do have that stout defensive backfield. I would go ahead and stay away from Stafford just for this game.
I would say if David Montgomery is your RB2, it'd be tough not to start him, even though, even if it's against such a great defense. If he's your third best running back in fantasy, there are other options to kind of slide in your flex. I'll also add that I heard a lot of Bears fans be real happy that Fields is not going to get the start against the Rams, because that's going to be a massacre. I like the Rams covering, even though it's a touchdown, -7 spread. I think this is a big win for the Rams.
Last game of the week, we have Ravens at Raiders. Over-under is sitting at 51. I'm going to go under on that. I think there's a solid chance that the Raiders could be shut out in this one. Ravens at -4.5. I'll go heavy on that. I think the Ravens are going to stomp all over the Raiders. Fantasy-wise, we've got Lamar Jackson, Marquise Brown, Gus Edwards, with J.K. Dobbins going down for the rest of the season, and their defense, special teams. Raiders were actually pretty solid against tight ends last year, so I'd sit Mark Andrews if you can. Most people who've drafted Mark Andrews can't do that, but I would stay away from him in DFS leagues. Obvious starts for the Raiders. We have Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller. I'm going to wait and see on Kenyon Drake. Defense and special teams is probably not going to be a start for me all year for the Raiders. And Henry Ruggs is also going to be a wait and see. Let's see if that talent can turn into something. For the time being, I'm staying away.
I think you're spot on with the under in this game. 51 points is quite a lot, considering the better offense here, I think, is the Ravens. But you have Marquise Brown, who had that soft tissue injury. Bateman, who looks like he's probably going to miss that game. Just lost J.K. Dobbins. I think the sooner you can get in there on the under, the better. And might even be a pretty nice 3-item same-game parlay to go under, Ravens to cover 4.5, and the money line there. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Remember, if you have any questions about fantasy football or football bets, send us a message at our handles on Twitter and Instagram. That's at FantasyFBNBets. And of course, you should like and subscribe our YouTube page. We'll be posting weekly matchup advice throughout the season. Let's go Red Wolves.